Good evening to everyone. Blessings to you. Frank Gilliard coming to you today. I want to address the current topic of removing the mention of slavery and equity and the different topics around Black history from our curriculum in our schools. In recent years, political and educational debates have escalated over whether and how to include images and information about slavery and Black history in schools and museums. States have passed laws limiting how race is taught, with some efforts specifically targeting Black history content. I want to first deal with the argument supporting the inclusion of images and historical details, uh, presenting the facts as they happened. First of all, promoting historical accuracy. Those who are supportive of it argue that an accurate and complete understanding of American history is impossible without confronting the realities of slavery and systematic racism. Images and historical records are essential tools for presenting this hard history truthfully. Secondly, connecting the past to the present. They believe that teaching the full history of slavery, including its brutality, helps students understand the roots of systematic racism and persistent social inequalities. Organizations like the NAACP argue that removing this history perpetuates ignorance and hinders progress towards an inclusive society. Thirdly, honoring resilience. A comprehensive curriculum goes beyond depicting victims to also center the resilience, resistance, and agency of uh, enslaved people, starting with African civilization before moving to the history of slavery, helps frame the humanity of those who were enslaved, serving as a powerful educational tool. This is the last point. Museums and schools use historical images and artifacts to highlight the strength and courage of Black Americans during a difficult time. The National Museum of African American History and Culture, for example, features items like iron ballast from a sunken slave ship to create a deeper understanding of this history. Now, on the side of those who are opposing the presentation of this information, their argument is number one, age appropriateness. Some argue for teaching difficult subjects like slavery in an age appropriate way. This view, expressed by conservative uh, think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, suggests that the contents and graphic nature of images should be filtered for younger students. Secondly, avoiding shame and division. Some state laws banning or restricting discussions on race, often using terms like divisive concepts or critical race theory, are based on the premise that such topics create a sense of national shame. Iowa's law, for example, limits coursework on sexism, slavery, and racial oppression. Next, their argument is focusing on positive narratives. Florida curriculum changes, which ban an AP African American Studies course, gain national attention for including instructions on how some enslaved people develop skills, which in some instances should be applied for their personal benefits. Supporters of this approach argue against focusing solely on oppression. Critics, however, say such framing attempts to whitewash history. Then there's the point of having concern over the impact that the lessons have on the students. And some teachers express discomfort with how difficult topics affect students, particularly Black students. A 2017 Southern Poverty Law Center report noted teachers' concerns that seeing Black people only represented as slaves in textbook should negatively impact students or could negatively impact students' sense of self. And in the broader context of educational restriction, the removal of certain Black history content is a part of a wider trend in education. Since 2021, numerous states have passed legislations that restrict how race and gender topics are taught in schools. This has led to the banning of books, censorship of educational materials, and mandates on what can be included in lesson plans. In February 2025, a report noted that teachers at Fort Campbell School had to remove Black History Month bulletin boards and books mentioning slavery or civil rights, illustrating the direct impact of these restrictions. Arguments for removing or altering the history content. Celebrating American exceptionalism proponents include some political leaders and conservative think tanks calling for focusing on a more celebratory and exceptional view of American history. This includes minimizing what some considers divisive or negative parts of the past, like the harsh realities of slavery. Emphasizing progress. A common argument is that museums and curricula should place more emphasis on how far we've come since slavery rather than focusing on its negative aspects. Well, that should be geared towards whose point of view we are taking when we talk about how far we've come since slavery, because, for many Black people, we're still feeling the impact and the effects of racism, and we're still feeling the economic pinch of being Black in America. So they also want to ensure that content is age appropriate, and where some advocates says restricting content on these simple, sensitive topics should be taught in an age appropriate way, so the younger kids do not get to hear the truth or hear the hard facts. They have to have a softer curriculum to ease them into the truth of what happened in our history. So restoring truth in history, an executive order signed in March 2025 called for the Smithsonian to remove what it deemed divisive race-centered ideology from its exhibits to restore truth in American history. Now, I don't know what that means, because for us as Black people, the truth is we had to suffer. We had to deal with the ravages of slavery, and we are still suffering because the mindset of most Caucasian Americans see us as Blacks being less educated, less intelligent than they are, and so the impact of slavery on us is still real. Now, this has been denounced by many as an attempt to censor the past. So we have to deal with the truth, and we ought not want be ashamed of what we've done as a nation. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of the recent controversies. Florida education standards. The state has faced widespread criticism for changes to its Black history curriculum that many considered watered down and inaccurate. Museums and the Smithsonian. In 2025, an executive order called for a review of the Smithsonian Museum to ensure that they align with American ideals and remove divisive content. This has led to the rotation of some slavery and civil rights artifacts out of exhibits, prompting protests and accusations of historical censorship and whitewashing. Well, again, you know, uh, this goes to show that our truth, our past is not important, that we're not important. And if that's not racism at its highest, I don't know what is. I mean, no one is taking white history out of the history books. Why then is it necessary to come in and edit Black history? That's censorship. That's racism. That's racism at its highest. State legislative restrictions. Since 2021, over a dozen states have passed or debated laws that restrict how race and gender topics can be taught in school, which critics say limit truthful discussions of Black history. Textbooks and book challenges. School districts have seen directives to remove books and materials that mention slavery, civil rights, and other issues deemed discriminatory or related to equity ideology. Well, here's my thought. If you want to really get rid of your shameful past, how you treated our ancestors, then do what you're supposed to do and make reparations to the descendants of those slaves. Go take, what we need to do is we need to have psychological training, psychological uh, counseling for not simply Black Americans, but for Black and white Americans, because white Americans suffer from the impact of slavery because they still see Black people as unequal to them, inferior to them. And so they're still suffering from the impact of slavery. Black people are still suffering from the impact of slavery, especially the the agenda that was put out to divide us so that we could be easily managed, keep us apart, use every means to uh, create division among us, use our skin color, the lighter skin, the darker skin, use our status on the plantations, those who are in the big house and those who are in the field, different things. And so, we have suffered emotionally, we have suffered uh, psychologically from the impact of slavery because it has been a part of the division that we suffer, and it needs to be addressed. One of the things that ought to happen through reparation is that counseling should be paid for. We should have counseling for all Americans concerning racism, concerning the impact of racism, concerning the untruths that have been taught to the white or the Caucasian citizens in this country. I mean, it's well known that during World War One and Two, that Caucasian soldiers told countries that we were fighting in that black folk had tails. I mean, we have been accosted verbally. We have been accosted so many ways uh, because of racism. And now you want to just act like uh, slavery didn't happen, but we're still suffering. We're still dealing with the psychological impact of slavery in America. And until we address that by simply taking it out of the books, whitewashing history is not going to cure the deadly and the poisonous impact of slavery on this whole nation. And until reparations are made, until a admittance of wrongdoing has been uh, done by this nation, this nation needs to admit that what is done to the African American in this country. It needs to repent for the sins that have been committed, the atrocities that have been committed. And some people are saying, well, I didn't do it. It was done by your foreparents. It was done to our foreparents. And you are still suffering from it. We're still suffering from it. And the nation is still suffering from it. And by simply covering it up, whitewashing it, sweeping it under the rug, that is the worst thing that we can do to heal the situation. The most important thing that we can do is to sit down and be counseled, to be told the truth about the lies that were told, the fabrications that were made up, all of the things that were said that actually put poison in the minds of the Caucasian against the black race, and that put enmity among the black race, uh, among each other. The problem that we're having as a black race created by slavery. Why we cannot get together, why we cannot work together, why we cannot get together and pool our resources and arise above the trap that has been set for us, the trap of division. Why? And so, you know, on the next broadcast, I want to deal with reparation. I want to talk about how the Indians or the Native Americans have been given reparation. I want to talk about how the Jews from the Holocaust are still getting reparations from Germany. You know, everyone that has been treated inhumanly, or have been accosted, or have been violated in history, they have been given reparations, all except African Americans. Everyone else can get reparations but African American, another form of discrimination and hate against our race.